Yeah, I whacked my thumb on something. This is a homemade bandage. Want to know what's going on here? This is a tissue rubber banded to my thumb with some mupirocin. That's the powerhouse Neosporin underneath it. I've got Band-Aids, but Band-Aids don't stay on all that well. So, tissue with a rubber band, baby. Live the dream with us here at Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Presented by FanDuel and the FanDuel Sportsbook and by our pals at the Believe Network of Podcasts. I am Dan Besbris at Dan Besbris on social media. DanBesbris. Old Man Squad is the feed. If you want to get all the shows, it's time to get down on Friday. Weekly review show, our first of the year. We have had 3 days of games. I get it. That's not a full week. But for our purposes, on week one, it is a full week. I don't have an explanation as to why. You're just going to have to take my word for it. If you guys are uninitiated, what we do during these weekly review shows is go through everything that happened, basically Sunday through Thursday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's basically a 5-day review because we do a big weekend review on Monday, and tell you who the ads are, the drops, the holds, the watch lists, the worries, the injury replacements. And it's just kind of a way to get fully reset for people that may have missed a day or two, or if you're in weekly leagues where you're making your fab decisions for the weekend. And I think it's a pretty useful type of show, and you guys all seem to like it. So we've been doing it now for a couple of years, and we're going to do it again this time. Hit that subscribe button while you're settling in. If you don't know if you want to subscribe yet, feel free to wait and then do it a little bit later on. And for now, we begin. The ads of the week. I don't know how to say of the week in French. Ads of the du jour times 5. Good French, Dan. Why are we putting little asterisks next to the names? No, they're not, Bonds trying to get into the Hall of Fame. That is a tracker as to how many times they've been on our ads board. Why do we have that tracker as I spill water all over my keyboard? Doing great this morning, by the way. Smashed my thumb, pouring water on my computer. Killing it, Dan. We use those asterisks to track how long they've been on the ads board because after 4 weeks on the ads board, we retire them to a new board that I obviously won't have on the show until week 4 or 5 that lists the quote-unquote rest of season, you want to call it wins or whatever, and we don't have to talk about them every week. It just becomes this sort of like, oh yeah, this was the guy that we had suggested adding for a while. Hopefully everybody has now done that. The ads of the week, and these will also be the names that we probably spend the most time on, are Obi Toppin, Aaron Gordon, Jonathan Kuminga, Ryan Kalkbrenner, Khris Middleton, Kyshawn George, and Kyle Filipowski. And I get it. In some of your leagues, all of these guys were already rostered coming into this morning. In some of your leagues, all 7 of these guys might have been drafted. But odds are, in the vast majority of leagues, someone, or plural, on this list was a free agent on the day the season started. I'm thinking to most of my leagues, and of all the names listed here, I think Kyshawn George was probably the most rostered of these names. And then maybe Filipowski and Gordon, but like Khris Middleton didn't get drafted in almost any of my leagues. I think he was available in 80-something% of my cash leagues because we all thought he was just going to be a corpse being dragged up and down the court, and then he ended up being pretty good. So let's start with Khris Middleton because he's the guy that I'm making jokes about his decrepit body. Middleton came out and looked really good. And it blew me away because he's on this tanking Washington team that we know needs veteran leadership, but Middleton's body hasn't been right for years. But he looked solid in their loss in Milwaukee. He played 29 minutes, scored 23 points, 6 boards, 3 assists. He had 3 threes. He shot the ball well. He only had 1 turnover. I know he's a lumbering ox of a man at this stage of his career, but when you plop him in there with Kyshawn George and Bub Carrington and Alex Sarr and currently CJ McCollum, he's been pretty good. It's possible that Middleton might just be an injury fill-in while Bilal Coulibaly gets right. When Bilal comes back, we have to assume he's going to get this starting spot, I think. I doubt he takes it from McCollum, but you never know. And at that point, Middleton probably goes back to being an afterthought. But for now, while we accept the risk that he probably won't play in back-to-backs, I'd be floored if he played in back-to-backs. But, I mean, I just got surprised that he played almost 30 minutes in the opener. So crazier things have happened. He needs to be rostered, and I think he probably needs to be started. Because this was, yes, a very high-paced ball game, certainly. But you're not going to get that kind of stat set with the Middleton level of efficiency that he can give you. And that's crazy. I know it's totally nuts, but that's where we're at here in 2025. Now let's cycle back to the top of the list and start with Obi Toppin. So the Pacers played their season opener finally on Thursday, and Oklahoma City is just going to play 58 minutes of basketball every day, I guess, this year, because it went to double overtime again. Thunder had 2 games, and they've had 4 overtimes. But on the Pacers side, Isaiah Jackson got the start. He was in foul trouble immediately, 3 fouls in 5 first-half minutes. But he ended at 8 minutes. And the second time around, it wasn't all fouls. It was some of that, but they were just like, whatever, this isn't working. And Jay Huff had 2 blocks in his 12 minutes, but I don't think they're planning on playing him big-time minutes. Toppin is the guy that kind of already knows what's going on around Pacers Town. And I think that gives him, and I thought that gave Isaiah Jackson a little bit of a leg up, but I don't think he's quite right yet. Toppin, off the bench, played 40 minutes in that double overtime game, meaning even if you wipe out the extra periods, he still was at 30. And that's way more than enough playing time for Toppin to put up numbers. I don't think he's going to play 30 minutes every day, but I'm calling him an ad right now because it just feels like Isaiah Jackson's going to need time to get ramped all the way up. And yeah, this was a tough matchup. The Thunder are very good at a lot of things, but also it exposed the fact that, and Jackson didn't look particularly good during the preseason either. He's just not fully recovered yet. And I don't know. I mean, maybe he will be at some point this year, but it's certainly not now. And so I'm picking up Toppin. If I'm in a games cap format, I'm probably not using him immediately, but I think he could actually be just straight 9-cat startable for a while. And by the way, he did this without hitting his 3-pointers. He went 0 for 8 from downtown. If he hits 2 of those, and this is a really big line. Again, double overtime, a lot gunked up by that. Ben Sheppard fouled out. Benedict Mathurin fouled out. Aaron Nesmith fouled out. Like, there were copious extra minutes to go around. But even like a 24, 25-minute Obi Toppin is pretty damn close to top 100 value. Next name on the list is Aaron Gordon. And again, we're giving these guys a lot of action on the show because I think the ads probably are the ones you want to pay the most attention to. Aaron Gordon likely added in your league before we even got to this. Dude dropped 50 on Thursday night, so he was added immediately. Once he hit the 30-point mark on like 8 3-pointers, he got added. Crazy game for Aaron Gordon. This is both an ad and a sell high, if we can convey that in one segment of a podcast. Gordon is not going to score 50 points a game. I don't think anybody believes that he will. He is also not likely to shoot 80% for the year. He's probably not going to shoot 100% at the free throw line. He went 10 out of 11 from 3-point land in this game, 7 out of 10 from 2-point land in this game. He had 1 block, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, no steals. Gordon's turned himself into this weird new iteration of Aaron Gordon, a guy that used to be pretty reliable, like 1 steal, 1 block type of dude. Barely gets any defensive stats anymore. Used to be a punt free throw target. Now, suddenly he can shoot free throws. Throws arms in the air in confusion. It's pretty rare that a guy's a decade into his NBA career and just fully remakes his fantasy stat set. But that's kind of what we're seeing out of Gordon. What do I think he'll be this year? I think he's got a shot at top 100, which is weird to say after he's basically the number 1 player in fantasy after 1 ball game. But whatever, like, that's the magic of a small sample size. You can, for one night, be the best player in fantasy basketball and finish at the edge of the top 100. Is there a chance he could be a little bit better than that? Yeah, but I'd still be trying to sell him for somebody that got drafted like, I don't know, 90 range that you have some sort of confidence in. Could you get Mikal Bridges? If he had a bad first game, maybe, but he was pretty good in that first one. Onyeka Okongwu is a possible target. Josh Hart would be a target. If you could get Tumani Kamara, I would do it. If you could get... you could aim higher than Lively and Christian Brown because they had really bad first ball games. Maybe you could go get Donovan Clingan, who was just kind of fine in his first game, but we know he's going to be much, much better than that. See what you could get. I don't know actually what the consensus is on Aaron Gordon after one gigantic game, but kick the tires on it. Jonathan Kuminga was an ad after game one. He was fine on Thursday, but not great. 14 points, 5 boards, 3 assists. He missed 2 of his 3 free throws. He did not have defensive stats. This is sort of the concern. And obviously, after a really big first ball game, we kind of had no choice but to pick up Kuminga. But I don't think that it's going to last all year. And I think I probably said this a couple days ago on the pod. Like, you have no choice, but also be ready because he is still Jonathan Kuminga. And we know enough about him to know he's not a high assists guy. He's not a high defensive stats guy. He's not a great foul shooter. What are we going to get? He kind of feels like a glorified Bobby Portis. And I don't know why I pronounced it like I had a British accent for a second there. Which, fine, like, I think Bobby Portis has a decent year, too, even after a bad first ball game. But we're getting very excited about a Kuminga that is probably just not going to change his stripes immediately. I do think he belongs on rosters, so keep him on there. He's still an ad here from week 1, but I have somewhat low hopes on where the Kuminga thing is going to go. Ryan Kalkbrenner is the next name on the board. He got the start on opening night for the Hornets. That was a surprise because for most of the preseason, Moussa Diabate was starting, even if they were kind of splitting the minutes. And they kind of split the minutes in this one, too. Kalkbrenner was 26 and change. Diabate was 21 and change. Both guys actually had pretty good fantasy lines. I like the fact that the Hornets are trying to push more on the young guy. Not that Diabate is an old dude, but Kalkbrenner is, first game ever in the NBA was Wednesday. And by all accounts, it went relatively well. 10 points, 11 rebounds, couple of blocks, 5 out of 6 shooting. He's the guy with the interesting fantasy game also. So Kalkbrenner is the one we want to win this position battle. I'd love to see what this game would have been like if the Hornets weren't up by 25, because they were throttling a very bad Brooklyn Nets ball club. So maybe Charlotte will play a tighter ball game here coming up over the weekend. I actually think they play Saturday. Are they Saturday and not today? Yeah, they're Saturday, Sunday back-to-back. So we'll get a lot of Charlotte data over the weekend. Unfortunately, I can't do anything with it for this particular podcast. But I'd be very surprised if I came around on Monday and was like, yeah, you can go ahead and kick Kalkbrenner to the curb. It feels like a worst-case scenario for him is about a 24-24 split, and now we're inching towards a more reliable, slightly more than 24 minutes for Ryan. We don't know exactly how many minutes he needs to get to fantasy value. It seems like the answer is probably around 26 or 27 for a center that'll get you field goal percent. You can go ahead and dig in a little bit on his college numbers if you want to try to semi-guess how things are going to translate. But, the good news is he's always been a high field goal percent dude, which is generally what you want out of a big man, right? You want your big man to be hitting field goals. He's not the worst foul shooter on earth, but he's also not great, kind of high 60s in that. 71, actually, for his collegiate career. Was good 2 seasons back, and then it kind of tapered off a little bit. Starting to add the three-pointer. Don't know if that's a thing we'll see a ton of. He can block shots. He can rebound a bit. So, pretty traditional fantasy game for a center. That's an easier one to develop into 9-cat value because we're not expecting him to handle the ball a bunch, and hopefully LaMelo will get him open. So, Kalkbrenner, add him. Kyshawn George is on the ads board. He should probably just not be listed on this particular show because he probably should have been drafted. And I think we had him on one of our flyer tiers for the buckets. I forget which one, flyer 3 or 4 or something like that. I think it was flyer 3 for Kyshawn. So likely drafted in your league. But on the off chance he wasn't, after his big game on Wednesday, he almost definitely got picked up. Still can't shoot to save his life. 4 of 8 at the free throw line. He managed to get to 47% from the field, but that's going to be a good night for Kyshawn. But 21 points, 9 boards, 4 assists, a steal, 2 blocks, 3 3-pointers. He is very, very interesting in 6 counting stats and just a wreck in the other ones. And I think you kind of just have to deal with it because he's good. That's the bottom line. He's going to be a good basketball player, and sometimes you just have to like grit your jaw a little bit and push through. And the last name on the board is Kyle Filipowski, another name that might have gotten drafted in your league. I think we had him on our 4th tier of flyers. I had him a little bit lower than a couple of these other names, and looking back, maybe I should have flip-flopped him a little bit. But he got the start at power forward on night 1. I thought that was somewhat surprising. Maybe I should have seen that coming, but also Taylor Hendricks played 19 minutes off the bench. I think that's a number that's going to inch its way up as he gets fully recovered from a season-long injury absence. Ace Bailey likely takes Svi Mikhailiuk's job in the starting 5 when he's completely over the flu. And so I do think that some of what we saw on night 1 is not fully permanent. Filipowski's line wasn't great. He played 24 kind of foul-plagued minutes, but he had 9, 4, and 5 with a block and a 3-pointer. And that's the key, is that you've got a center-eligible, played power forward, but center-eligible guy who can score, rebound, hit threes, and block a couple of shots. Mostly not as many blocks, but more the boards, threes, points kind of thing, on decent percentages, which is also good to get out of a big man. And he's starting. So roll with it for now. I'm not fully convinced that Filipowski is going to be the guy there the entire year. I think at some point there are enough bodies in Utah that you're going to see minutes kind of getting split a little bit more. But for now, he's on the ads board, and just, put a little caveat next to the name that's like, might not start the whole year, but like, who cares? These are ads on a weekly ads board. You're not expecting them to start the entire year. All right, so we spent a bunch of time on those 7 names. Before we get to everything else we're going to do on the show, I need to take a minute or two just to hit you guys with some promo. Promo number 1 is my Patreon. And I know that I have been talking about it a lot, but it is a big part of what I'm trying to do. It's what I'm calling micro Patreon. I set it at $1 so that basically you guys could contribute and not even really think about it all that much. If I could have set it at 50 cents, I would have, but they gave me the $1 price point, and so I just sort of rolled with it. I don't want anybody to give more than that. Frankly, I don't want most of you to give anything, but the goal here is for me to take the pod ad revenue, which is slowly creeping up as I was hoping it would, combine that with these sort of micro doses of Patreon. And if you mush that all together over the span of a calendar year, I am generating exactly enough money to pay taxes and my childcare expenses. And so if enough of you are all doing $1, anybody that I'm helping out there that you're winning a few $100s or more over the course of a year in fantasy money, $1 a couple times a year, whatever it turns out to be, 12 max, you barely even think about it. Maybe you don't even think about it at all. That's how Apple gets you with their stinking 50 gig iCloud plan. They don't care about that. 99 cents? What am I going to do? Cancel it for 99 cents? Well, that's where we're at with this. So if you have the 99 cents, fantastic. If you don't, it's fine. I just want to make sure I can do all this stuff for free forever. And we are getting very close, but we just need a little bit more. And, a little bit, a couple $100s here and there. Like, there are tens of thousands of you guys listening and watching to these things. So I know a handful of you can continue to do it. So I thank you in advance. Also, thanks for subscribing to Old Man Squad, the podcast feed, or the YouTube channel. We just dropped our first DFS show of the NBA season. My good buddy Keith Cork dropping a DFS episode for the big Friday 12-game card. If you play DFS, check that out. I think it's like 30-ish minutes to get you all squared away. Keith is the man. He is dealing with 3 sick children, and he still got you that episode. So good reasons to subscribe. Shout out, as always, to our pals at FanDuel and the FanDuel Sportsbook. What do we got going on over in the world of FanDueling this evening? Raptors -1.5 over the Bucks. Nah. Wizards at Dallas, Mavs -10. Lakers 2.5-point home underdogs. I think the Lakers are going to get punked in that game by the Wolves. I might go Wolves on the road. Clippers -9.5 against Phoenix after getting embarrassed by Utah. That's interesting. Clippers are going to come out angry. Don't drive angry. I think the Wolves is probably my preferred play. That's all over at the FanDuel Sportsbook app. FanDuel, proud partners of us here at Old Man Squad, Fantasy Basketball, and the Believe Network. Let's plow our way through the rest of this program with the injury replacement board. You will notice there is also a carrot designation on these players, those that are watching along or saw the thread on Twitter. The carrots denote how much confidence I have in the players, also known as the number of hamburgers I would assign to them on the good old-fashioned burger board. So, Tre Jones, Grayson Allen, and Davion Mitchell are 2 burger or carrot, if you're a vegetarian, replacements. Tre Jones for Coby White, Grayson Allen for Jalen Green, Davion Mitchell for Tyler Herro. 2 carrot or 2 burger guys are ones that I think have a chance to be top 50 while they are filling in. 1 carrot or 1 burger guys are dudes that I think can be around 75 range. And 0 carrot or burger names on this list are the ones that I would designate as closer to top 100, kind of teetering on whether or not you need to stream them at all. Aaron Wiggins, with Jalen Williams and Kyshawn Wallace out, has a 1 burger or carrot designation. Dillon Brooks has a 1 carrot designation. And a quartet of names has not yet been assigned a carrot designation. Those guys are Ryan Rollins with Kevin Porter Jr. out, Rui Hachimura with LeBron James out, Ajay Mitchell, with Jalen Williams and Kyshawn Wallace out. Same story as Aaron Wiggins. And then Ben Sheppard with Andrew and Ryan. Who's Aaron Nembhard? Is that an actor? Andrew Nembhard. There's a Ryan Nembhard. That's his brother. Ben Sheppard is the name in Indiana, who will likely fill in at point guard. We just don't know a ton about how his game is going to translate, but he probably, if I had to guess, gets upgraded to 1 carrot once we see him in another ball game. You could get out in front of that one as well. I don't want to poo-poo the injury replacement guys either. I actually love injury replacement names. I love the burger board. It's one of the favorite things that I work on a day-to-day basis because a lot of times, if you're in competitive fantasy basketball leagues, your first 11 picks are guys that you actually are interested in. And then the last 2, 3, or 4 are guys who are like, you make a fart sound effect and then you kind of go on with your day. These are the guys, especially for games cap, that you should be replacing those roster slots with because it's not schedule dependent and you could dodge one or, the 0 carrot names on this list if they don't have a good schedule. But like Tre Jones, as long as Coby White is out, is an all formats play. I think he could be a 5th rounder while Coby White is out. So you just pick him up and he occupies a roster slot for a while. We talk about long streaming on these podcasts, and again, for those that are new this year, long streaming is when you're picking up a guy for a schedule volume play, but you're doing it for more than 2 or 3 days. You're doing it for 4 days, 6 days, 7 days, 9 days. These guys on the injury replacement board, these are the ultimate long streams because it's indefinite. You're streaming until someone comes back to take their job. Grayson Allen, by the way, it sounds like Jalen Green's not as far away as we thought, like maybe within the week, but like Coby White, we know is out at least 2 weeks from opening night. You're going to get at least 2 weeks of Tre Jones. Davion Mitchell, you're probably, we keep hearing these weird little rumors that Tyler Herro is not that far away, but I don't believe them. I think you're going to get at least 3 weeks out of Davion Mitchell, maybe more. Wiggins, I don't know. When does Kyshawn Wallace come back? Is that going to be enough? Okay, fine. Rui's not that great. Dillon Brooks, you get a week with Jalen Green. These are useful. This is a roster spot. Even if you consider it a streaming slot for these injury deals, it's long stream. Here's some names on the time to hold board. How do I choose the names on time to hold? These are guys that I think are generally almost universally drafted. Almost. Like anything above a very flimsy 12-teamer. So, like, even a relatively novice level 12 teamer, these guys are going to be drafted. And then obviously anything more competitive or deeper than that, they will be drafted. 10 teamers, maybe not, but like I try to operate on the 12 team guys here and we'll roll with that. So here are the time to hold names. Aaron Nesmith fouled out, but he actually looked kind of okay beforehand. Cam Johnson and Christian Braun, their poor games were the byproduct of Aaron Gordon doing 3 players stuff all by himself. Think about it from this perspective. Aaron Gordon scored 50 points on opening night. What do you think Aaron Gordon averages this year? 15, 16? That's a third of that. Who do you think is going to score the other 30-something points we just talked about? Some combination of Cam Johnson, Christian Braun, Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic. Okay? These guys will both be fine. CJ McCollum is the time to hold. However, I will add the caveat that I told you guys not to draft CJ McCollum because he's forgotten how to shoot. Something happened to CJ over the years where he was just like, yeah, okay, I don't remember how to shoot anymore. And his field goal percent just kept inching down, and his free throw percent fell off a cliff a few years back. And I don't think they're coming back. Plus, he's on a team, and I know I called Khris Middleton an ad, but like, is CJ McCollum really the guy you want to hitch your wagon to? Middleton has a better fantasy game than McCollum. If they're both playing, I'd rather have Khris. Now, as we mentioned earlier, when Koulibaly comes back, by the way, I didn't mean to organize the time to hold names alphabetically. That's crazy that they actually turned out that way. I was going reverse chronologically through the games that happened Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday. And so starting on Thursday not morning, but the early game and then to the evening, and then back through Wednesday from early to late. That's crazy. I know this type of thing is going to happen at random, which is what happened here, but still, that's super weird. All my hold names running backwards went alphabetically. Why do I care? I don't know. Anyway, point that I was trying to make on McCollum was, Middleton probably gets bumped out by Koulibaly, so at that point, McCollum will be the more interesting player. I just don't see CJ as better than like top 115 unless he figures out how to shoot again. If you're punting a percentage or both, fine. But either way, he's a hold for now. I didn't draft him anywhere, and so hopefully we won't have to worry about it. Derek Lively got fully Wembanyama'd in his first ball game. He is a prime buy low, if anything, right now, because someone was like, oh, no, he played 11 minutes, and then Anthony Davis was the center of the whole game. Yeah, because Lively had 5 fouls in less than a quarter, basically. Oh, he's probably just looking around going, he's got Wemby nightmares, wakes up in a cold sweat with a image of an alien emblazoned on the back of his eyeballs. Naz Reid is a time to hold guy, although I'll admit I didn't draft him anywhere. I think a healthy Wolves team, he's outside the top 100. After seeing what I saw last year, which, by the way, we were high on Naz Reid last season, and it worked because the Wolves got hurt a bunch in the middle of the season, and maybe that happens again, but I don't want to have to bank on that again. And then Tari Eason is a time to hold guy. You can't punt on this dude after one ball game. I feel very fortunate, actually, that I kind of started to avoid him around pick 100 because I was like, man, I don't like late 8th round, early 9th round pick. I don't really want to take a guy that I know is going to sit out 15 games and is in a log jam. And there were a lot of reasons to still like him. And I do think he bounces back and has a solid year. I didn't take him. I think I probably had just taken too many guys that were already mild injury risks in my games cap formats. And so I passed him over. And it was an ugly first one, but it'll be better. It'll be better. Fear not. It'll probably be better as soon as this weekend. Here's the time to worry board. Also, by the way, built of players that I think were generally drafted. So obviously you don't need to worry about a guy if he's not on a roster. But the names on the time to worry board are Brandon Pajemski, Kel'el Ware, Santi Aldama, and Bobby Portis. Of the names on this list, I have a bunch of Bobby Portis. So that was the one that I'm personally the most worried about because I have him rostered. The other ones, I didn't like what I saw in the preseason from any of the first 3. I know this is a weird thing because, like, the preseason doesn't feel, like it should mean all that much. And yet, sometimes it does. And for these 3 names, Pajemski, Ware, and Aldama, and honestly, the 2 middle ones, Ware and Aldama, were the biggest offenders here. The Heat telegraphed what they were going to do to start the season. They basically said, we see Kel'el Ware as our backup center. Like, we don't want to run the two big lineup if we don't have to. And through one game, they haven't. What happens if Nikola Jovic flames out? All right, then they might not have a choice. But at some point here, Tyler Herro is going to come back, and that's going to force more of a roster crunch. Right now, this is probably about as good as it's going to get, unless like a big man goes down, specifically Bam Adebayo. If Adebayo misses a game, then obviously this thing changes entirely. But Bam, historically, outside of like the year after COVID, has been a very healthy, durable dude. You can't drop Ware because likely you drafted him with your 8th round pick. But we did tell you during the end of draft season, be super careful there. Probably don't draft him. Take some other center in that range because it hasn't looked good. And Aldama, I'll admit, August and September, I was really high on Santi because the news just kept coming out in Memphis that was like, JJJ's not ready, and Brandon Clark is out forever, and Zach Edey's out forever, and John Morant is week to week. And it's like, oh, Santi Aldama, he's got his weird little voodoo doll. He's hexed the entire team, and he's the only man that survived. And somehow, despite all of that, Santi didn't play. I mean, he played, but he didn't play during the preseason. He never had a game where they were like, yeah, Aldama, you start and take a bunch of shots. It didn't happen. And if ever there was a moment to look at a team and go, oh, wow, they just don't like this dude. Like, everybody's gone. It's Will Smith at the end of Fresh Prince standing alone in the living room. And Aldama was that guy, but nobody gave him a basketball. So luckily there, I didn't draft Aldama anywhere outside of one spot where I was punting free throws. So I don't have to worry about that one either. But you got to hold. But you do need to worry also. Podziemski, like, I don't think he was as bad during the preseason. And to me, a lot of the Podziemski stuff is that right now, the Warriors are kind of shoehorning Jonathan Kuminga into extra stuff because they're working on smoothing things over. You know they're going to try to move Kuminga if they can, but if everything fits, then they won't, and they want to make sure that it's not just an absolute dumpster fire chemistry-wise. So Kuminga's doing extra, and Podziemski's doing less right now. Brandon played 34 minutes in their overtime game, but he only got 9 shots up. His usage was 14. He's not a good percentages guy, so he needs to be out there getting double-digit shot attempts up. And right now, he's behind Steph and Butler and Kuminga and Buddy Hield through the first couple of ball games, who I also think flames out at some point here. So I do think there will be a stretch at some point this year where Podziemski is good. I just don't know how fast we're going to get there. And so right now I'm worried, but I'm holding. And I do have pods in 1 or 2 places because he was going so crazy late compared to these other names. But I'm worried. And then with Portis, who I already talked about, like, he didn't play really on Wednesday. And that concerned me because this felt like a year where, and looking at the end of last season, they had Brook Lopez playing 30 minutes a game and Giannis playing his 30-some-odd minutes a game, and Bobby Portis was still finding a way to get 26 minutes a ball game during those stretches. And looking at the roster, it's like, well, they lost guys who take shots. Surely Bobby's going to have to get in there and do stuff. And yeah, admittedly, this game was a blowout, so would he have seen more action at the end? I don't know. There were probably also games last year where he closed over Brook Lopez. But when you just look at kind of how the minutes matched, it felt like this was the year that Bobby could get back to last year or maybe even take one step further. And so that's why I took him in the 120s in a lot of drafts. He was my 11th, 12th round pick, and it was really bad game 1. I'll admit, I am very worried. He only played 17 minutes. Kuzma got 23 off the bench. Miles Turner only played 29, and still that wasn't enough for Portis to get to do his stuff. Jericho Sims only got a minute and a half, so it wasn't like a different center soaked up minutes. It just, they went another way. And I am worried about that. I think it'll be better going forward. I think they'll play a more competitive team going forward, and you'll see more Bobby, and KPJ is out, so you're probably going to have to see more Bobby there. But I am a little bit worried. Not at cut level, but I am at worried level. Speaking of cuts, cut a minute out of your day and subscribe to Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. And also, again, check out all the links in the show description. The Google Sheet is in there, and it's going to have a lot of this data in on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis as well. I don't know why I put Colin Sexton on the cut list. I don't think he got drafted. Did he? I guess he got drafted in a lot of spots. I don't want him. Cut Colin Sexton. If you had any hope that he was going to be the shooting guard for the Hornets and play 25 to 32 minutes a game, I think we can squash that after game one. And I mentioned it earlier in the show. I'm willing to cut Isaiah Jackson. I know I'm making a quick, almost split-second decision on that one where we don't really have to. So if you want to hang on to Jackson for a little bit longer, be my guest. I don't think it's going to change a ton either way. And as I said earlier, I think at some point this year, he probably gets his legs underneath him. I just don't think it's going to happen now or quickly. So if you need a roster spot, I'm okay with Jackson as a cut. Very quickly, the list of watch list guys that I have an eye on and I'm considering for my team. And there's some pretty interesting names in here. Yegor Dillon, he's in Brooklyn. You're going to hear him called Igor Demin, but that's not how he pronounces his own name. How he pronounces it is hard to say quickly and many times. So I think broadcasters are probably going to go with the quick one, which would be Igor Demin. If you watch TikTok videos of him saying his own name, which, I mean, sometimes you got to do a deep dive if you're going to podcast about these kids, he says it is Yegor Diomin. Anyway, keep an eye on him. Wendell Carter Jr. is a guy we will always, is like a perpetual watch lister. Schedule streamer, sure, have at it. I don't know that he ever gets over the hump. KCP is questionable for the Grizzlies game, but he actually looked really good for Memphis in game one. And I don't know that they have many other choices with Ty Jerome and Scottie Pippen Jr. out for a while. So we might end up with KCP on the burger board. Dominic Barlow in Philly, he actually looked pretty good in game one. Let's see how he does in game two. And right alongside him, Quentin Grimes had a good game one. Kelly Oubre didn't. It's three guys in Philly that I think are going to be fighting actually with VJ Edgecombe at times. And so there might be a bit of a hot hand thing that goes on there, and that's going to make all of them a little bit annoying, but that's why they're on the watch list. Tre Johnson in Washington, very exciting young ball player. I think there are going to be a lot of growing pains. He looked good in game one. You can put him on your watch list. Gary Trent Jr., it feels like Milwaukee needs spacing. I don't know where else they're going to find it, but also Gary Trent kind of sucks, so I don't think you need to add him, but watch list. PJ Washington, you can put him on your watch list. Ayo, ha-cha-cha. He is probably like a top 110 plotter, if I had to guess this year, but that means that at some points he's going to have 2 or 3 weeks where he's better than that, and those will be the weeks where we use him. And then Jeremy Grant, who is probably going to get listed as an ad by a lot of people, but also he's not going to shoot that well every ball game, and he does nothing besides score at this point of his career. I don't want a one-dimensional power forward. That's what you expect out of a shooting guard. He's a power forward with a shooting guard stat set that now is coming off the bench. If he's not red hot, he's not going to even get to do as much as he did in game one. So watch list on Grant. I have a strong feeling that those that picked him up and got really excited about it are going to end up extremely disappointed because he's also going to get hurt at some point. That's the Jeremy Grant way. And that's your week one in review. I don't know how it took me 39 minutes to do this show, but it did. Thanks for watching, everybody. Find me on Twitter at Dan Bespris. I keep seeing this stupid wrap around my thumb as I'm watching the show. DANBESBRIS. Check out the $1 Patreon. We are going to micro donate our way to free content forever. The Google Sheet has the burger board, has the streaming calendar. Maybe I should start uploading some of these weekly reviews into there. I don't know. I'll put lots of stuff in there. You can go back and see all my ranks. Not that they matter anymore because the season has started, but, you know, maximum transparency. That's always a thing that people like. Fantrax is still a partner. Fantrax.com/oldmansquad. Hope you guys have checked them out now that Yahoo's charging you to set your lineup for the week. Another good reason to give Fantrax a look. The HOF app and FanDuel, all of our partners here on Old Man Squad. Thanks again for watching, everybody. I am Dan Bespris for OMSFB, and I'll see you guys a little bit later on today with a big Friday and weekend preview, all the things you should be checking out so you are ahead of the game. You're ready for a thing to happen. It's what you're expecting or looking for. You'll make your move ahead of everybody else, and you will win the first come, first serve type of leagues. Adios for now. See you in a bit.